There was a time in my life when God went totally silent. He was nowhere to be found, or at least that's how I felt. Everything around me kept moving, but inside, I felt cut off from life. And I was convinced that if God was really there, then I shouldn't feel so abandoned. So in this video, I want to share how that silence changed my life and what it did to my faith. If this is your first time here, my name is Kelly Leonard, and this is The Point of Forgiveness. Now, experiencing the trauma of sexual assault it's overwhelming and it's terrifying and it's painful and the isolation is awful. It's the kind of isolation where I felt cut off from everything familiar. Like life kept moving forward and I was stuck watching it happen from the outside. It's kind of like, okay, you're in a coffee shop, right? And the coffee bar that's by the window and you can look outside? Well, it felt like I was sitting alone in the coffee shop by that window, watching people walk by, doing their thing, and cars driving by, but yet no one even noticed I was there. It's like I was invisible. Nobody was aware of the personal hell that I was in. Everything inside me went numb. Each day, my goal was to get through just 1 minute at a time. That's it, 1 minute at a time. Breathing was difficult because I was so anxious. So I'd wake up, survive the day, go to bed, and do it again the next day. The nights were awfully long, and the silence was painful, it was heavy, and extremely isolating. And that loneliness got so deep that it started to feel unbearable. And how unbearable? I'm going to be honest with you. There were nights that I went to sleep, and I hoped that I wouldn't wake up in the morning, because it's not like I wanted to die, but it was because I couldn't imagine facing another day feeling that awful and that alone. I assumed that the quietness meant that God had gone, that he'd gone quiet too. That if I couldn't feel him, then he mustn't be there. I assumed God was near when life was good. When life was good, it was like, of course, it's a good God and he's great. But when he was far away, I felt everything fell apart. So I was reading about the story of Elijah in the Bible, and I really identified with him. It really means a lot to me. I mean, Elijah was hiding in a cave. He was fearful of being killed. And he tried to cry out to God, and he tried to hear God's voice in the wind and in an earthquake and in the fire. All the obvious places, the big places. But God's voice wasn't there. But it was in the stillness and in the quietness that Elijah finally heard God's voice. I can relate to that. Because at that time, I didn't really understand what that quietness was all about. I was still measuring God's presence by how obvious he made himself to me. Like I was looking for the big signs, that God was close. So when my life went painfully quiet, I thought God was gone and that he abandoned me. So today, what do I see now that I couldn't see then? Well, today, I see that in those quiet times is where God met me, just like Elijah did. God met me in that quiet, painful loneliness. Why? Because there were no other distractions. Well, why were there no other distractions? Because I'd been stripped down of everything else. My dignity was gone. My self-worth, done, gone. My trust in other people, there was none. It was gone. I had lost everything. Everything important inside of me was stripped away. And I was at my lowest point. They call it rock bottom. So when you hit rock bottom, all I could hear was God's voice. Because I was there with nothing left and nowhere to go, and all I could do was fall to my knees and surrender. And literally, that's what I did. I was by myself, and I fell to my knees, and I said, God, I have nowhere else to go. I have nothing. I can give you nothing, but I accept anything and everything that you have to offer me. Let me do your will. And I sobbed on my knees. Now, do I believe that being sexually assaulted was part of God's divine plan so he could get me to get close to him? No, absolutely not. And I also don't believe that suffering and pain is good. But what do I believe? I believe this, that when everything else is stripped away, when there is nothing left to drown things out, God uses the quiet to draw me close. He meets me in the quiet. The quiet becomes the very place where he sees me and I see him. And it's in that place where my faith and belief in Jesus Christ was strengthened and it made me whole. And how did my faith in Jesus Christ strengthen me? Well, my faith in Jesus gave me the strength to do the hardest thing of all. What I thought was completely impossible. And what's that? Well, that was to be able to forgive the person who sexually assaulted me. And I'm not just talking about words and just saying, hey, I forgive you. I'm talking about forgiveness from the heart, complete freedom in forgiveness. And my faith also gave me the strength to be able to forgive myself for carrying the weight of it all for so long. What have I learned through all of this? Well, I learned that when I was stuck and barely holding on, God was moving in the background. He was working overtime for me. I didn't know it then, but I do know now. In the silence, he was working overtime. He turned my ashes into something completely beautiful. I mean, I look back at my life now. I look at where I was then, and how lost I was. And I look at where I'm now, and I survived, and I conquered, and I overcame through Jesus Christ only. And how wonderful and beautiful is that? He made this truly beautiful. So now I know there's hope in Christ, and no matter what I face in the future. Why? Because he's proven himself to be faithful and reliable and trustworthy. Now, overall, if I could put it in a nutshell, what did I learn from all this? Well, I learned not to give up. Keep the faith. Now, if this resonated with you, feel free to share it with someone who might be walking through a quiet season of their own. And if this kind of content has been meaningful to you, go ahead and give it a subscribe and leave a comment, because it really helps these stories reach the people who need them. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.